Have you ever found yourself just staring at your screen after a long day, feeling like your brain is literally wrapped in a heavy fog? You try to push harder, but you're getting absolutely nowhere. Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're completely shifting the paradigm of modern productivity. For decades, we've been sold this pretty toxic narrative of relentless, grinding hustle. But your biology? It tells a very different story. Your brain is an incredibly demanding biological engine, literally consuming 20% of your resting energy. So today, we're building the architecture of resilience. It is time to stop fighting your biology and start optimizing it. Let's start by validating that heavy, almost paralyzing exhaustion you probably feel right around 3 p.m. every day. Look, hitting that mid-afternoon wall isn't a failure of willpower. It's actually a completely natural, predictable metabolic depletion of your prefrontal cortex, which is the executive center of your brain. When that area runs out of cellular fuel, your brain literally alters its cost-benefit analysis. It calculates that high-reward, complex tasks are simply too expensive energetically, and it pushes you toward low-effort distractions. So give yourself some grace. You aren't lazy. Your brain is just out of gas. To really understand this strain, we have to dismantle the ultimate modern workplace illusion, and that's multitasking. We all like to think that bouncing between an inbox, a project, and a team chat makes us faster. But in reality, it causes severe cognitive strain. Every time you transition between tasks, it leaves behind what we call attention residue. Think of it like trying to paint a new picture with a brush you haven't washed. A portion of your cognitive resources stays anchored to that previous task. This residue clogs up your working memory, spikes your stress hormones, and triggers that rapid exhaustion. To escape this cycle of fatigue, we really need to shift our brain into a state of flow. And doing this requires a specific anatomical shift called transient hypofrontality. Now, I know that sounds like a dense textbook term, but what it actually means is your brain is temporarily powering down the prefrontal cortex. That's the home of your inner critic, your self-doubt, and your constant time tracking. By quieting all that anxious noise, you free up massive amounts of energy for rapid, effortless processing. You lose your sense of time, and you just merge completely with the task at hand. So what does getting into this state actually do for us? Well, long-term research shows that individuals operating in a calibrated state of flow achieve a staggering 500% increase in productivity. That's absolutely massive. To put that into perspective, military researchers even found that marksmen in flow learned complex skills 230% faster. But beyond just raw output, flow serves as a profound protective buffer against burnout. It literally turns hours of agonizing friction into just minutes of seamless execution. Getting into this zone requires a very specific neurochemical cascade. It's essentially a perfect cocktail of high cognitive arousal and profound physical calm. First, dopamine arrives to give you laser focus. Then, norepinephrine locks in your vigilance. Endorphins rush in to soothe any physical tension. After that, anandamide, which is actually derived from the Sanskrit word for bliss, promotes lateral, creative thinking. And finally, serotonin grounds you with this deep sense of psychological contentment, stripping away the anxious friction of high-pressure work. But here's the catch. You cannot access that beautiful flow state if you are constantly in survival mode. This brings us to Section 1, regulating the nervous system. When our nervous system gets hijacked by chronic stress, we naturally default to taking shallow, rapid breaths. This restricts oxygen to the brain, leaving us anxious and, frankly, totally unable to focus. To fix this in real time, you can use something called the physiological sigh. Extensively researched at Stanford, it is the absolute fastest way to shift out of a stress state. You just take a deep double inhale through the nose, which pops open the collapsed air sacs in your lungs, followed by a slow, long exhale through the mouth. Repeating this just 1 to 3 times immediately slows your heart rate and regrounds your entire nervous system. Alongside your breathing, keeping your cells hydrated is just a non-negotiable for cognitive endurance. Did you know a lack of fluid literally physically shrinks your brain tissue? It's true. When you're dehydrated, your cells compact. This increases pressure in your head, which is why you get those tension headaches. And it forces your neurons to work infinitely harder just to maintain baseline function. Even mild dehydration can slash your attention and executive function by 20%. You have to give your brain the water it needs to maintain its structural volume. Okay, so with our internal state regulated, we can start turning our attention outward. Let's dive into Section 2, engineering the flow environment. Our physical environment deeply dictates how our brain processes information. Take the cathedral effect, for instance. If you're doing intense, detailed analytical work, you should actually be in a room with a lower ceiling, under 3 meters. Why? because it restricts your visual field and funnels your focus. Also, elevating your screen to eye level stimulates the brain's alertness pathways, actively blocking that daytime drowsiness. And in the morning, using bright, cool white lighting actually suppresses melatonin, waking up your brain naturally. Your workspace isn't just decor, guys, it's a direct biological input. But look, even in a perfectly optimized room, you are not a machine. While your circadian rhythm governs your 24-hour day, your energy actually runs on shorter, 90-minute ultraradian rhythms. You experienced a natural peak in focus, followed by an inevitable biological trough. You absolutely must respect this tide. Trying to brute force your way past that 90-minute mark without taking a break is exactly what leads to metabolic waste buildup and severe brain fog. During these deliberate breaks, the goal is total cognitive recovery. If you're pausing a project, write a quick ready to resume note. This completely offloads that open loop from your working memory. Then you need to change your physical state. Taking a short walk or maybe a rucking session with a weighted pack triggers the release of BDNF, which essentially acts like fertilizer for your neural pathways. And on a cellular level, taking just 5 grams of creatine can rapidly regenerate the raw energy your brain just burned through. Which brings us to our final, and honestly, most vital pillar. Section 3, the architecture of rest. Sleep is not just some passive block of unconsciousness. It is a highly active, multi-stage biological procedure. Deep sleep, or slow-wave sleep, is your physical restoration phase. This is when your brain's lymphatic system literally expands, acting like a power washer to flush out the neurotoxic metabolic waste that built up during your day. Then, REM sleep steps in as your emotional restorer. It untangles the emotional weight of your stress and secures new procedural memories. You absolutely need both of these to wake up feeling truly clear. Maximizing this nightly brainwash requires real intention. First off, your core body temperature needs to drop slightly to even initiate deep sleep, so dropping the room temp by 1 to 3 degrees is essential. You also need total darkness to prevent artificial junk light from confusing your circadian signals. And you have to train your nervous system by keeping your bed strictly for sleep. No answering stressful emails under the covers. This builds a powerful neural association of rapid relaxation. Finally, protect this whole process by cutting out late afternoon caffeine and evening alcohol, both of which severely fragment this delicate restorative cycle. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to really take a hard look at your daily routine. Ask yourself, are you working with your biology or are you fighting a losing battle against it? By replacing that exhausting hustle culture with strategic nervous system regulation, deep cellular recovery, and smart environmental design, you no longer have to sacrifice your well-being for your goals. You can finally align your ambition with your neurobiology for sustainable, emotionally grounded performance. So, what's the very first change you're going to make today?